What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube. And today I've got another edition of The Drive-In, where I watch recently released films and tell you guys whether they're worth watching, worth waiting for, or worth skipping altogether. Today is a part 2 stemming from last week. I am talking about Fear Street Part 2, 1978. Quick overview, you guys know R.L. Stine's Ghosts of Fear Street, the Goosebumps author who made the Fear Street books. Netflix made a 3-picture deal with them, so we're getting 3 stories in 3 consecutive Fridays. I just watched part 2. If you guys want to see my review for Fear Street Part 1, which was like 1986, I believe. I'm sorry, 1994 it was. 1994 was part 1. Go back on my channel. I reviewed that last week. I talk all about how much I enjoyed part 1, and so this was part 2, the second film, Fear Street Part 2, 1978. Made obviously today as I'm posting this. I'm posting this on the same day that I watched it. Just got done. I'm on a tight schedule today, so let's get right into it so I can jump into all the meat of the bones here. This was written by Lee Janiak and Zach Olkiewicz, directed by Lee Janiak, who also directed the first film very well, and starring Sadie Sink, Emily Rudd, and McCabe Slay. Sadie Sink, you guys will know from Stranger Things, the red-haired girl from Stranger Things, season 2 and 3. She was the main star in this. There's also the girl from Cruel Summer, the main character from Cruel Summer, also plays a bully character in this as well. So very good casting in keeping with our 90s teen style dramas. The story opens up recapping the last film, and we see a nice link, and I'll keep this spoiler-free at first and do spoilers at the end like always. We see a nice link for the last story where the kids from the survivors from the last one, Dina and company, are running around trying to bring back Dina's girlfriend, who has now been possessed by Sarah Fear. So they come across the survivor that called them in the first film. They go to the survivor's house, who we see is a shut-in, who is just counting down the days until the next Sarah Fear attack. We see the main characters kind of break in and come across the survivor of the previous Sarah Fear attacks. And that survivor goes back and tells the story that happened in 1978 at their camp. And we go back to one of the origins of Sarah Fear in 1978. So much like the first one was an homage to 90s slashers, this one goes back to 1978 and the dawn of the 80s camp slasher, which is very popularized by Friday the 13th, Sleepaway Camp, stuff like that. So we go back to this camp origin story of the main character and her sister bonding at this camp where a lot of these attacks happened in 1978. So many good things about this film. It does feel like a period piece in the 70s and 80s. It is an homage to Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, Friday the 13th, all that stuff. We see so many different homages to the horror genre and the slasher genre in this film. It feels very authentic. One of the first things I want to bring up is the soundtrack. I forgot to mention this last week. The authentic 90s soundtrack of last week that was so good. It was one of the shining stars of the first film, and I forgot to mention it. Well, I want to mention it here because not only was that great, but this 1978 soundtrack was also so great. There's Carry On My Wayward Son. There's so many staples of that 70s time period in this film that is served for transitions in different moments. But also there is a Harry Manfredini backing track. There's a lot of what feels like the Friday the 13th score in this. A lot of those synthy undertones, a lot of those dark piano notes, a lot of the whispering and the hushing that we get from the that Manfredini did on his own little recorders. Back in the day, you hear a lot of this stuff here. While they don't break any kind of trademarks, you hear very similar Manfredini-style notes here, paying homage to Friday the 13th. I love that. The soundtrack here is used for upbeat stuff, the upbeat rock tones. It's used for a lot of the editing transitions, and it's used for a lot of the slashing stuff like in Jason. I love that. There's also a lot of references to Stephen King. 2 of the main characters, Sadie Sink and her boyfriend character, who winds up being the cop in the first movie, and a callback to the cop's origin, where his father was a cop, his father died, now he's going to eventually take on the father's footsteps. Officer Good. They bond over Stephen King, so you get a lot of references to Carrie. You see an actual Carrie reference on screen. You see the sack head being placed over the killer at one point, which is a reference to Sackhead Jason. So this is filled with not only a lot of good music and a lot of good beats and scores, but also referencing a lot of the slashers we grew up on. R.L. Stine and company just did a great job with the story. Janiak and Zach Olkowicz did a great job in writing this. And again, the casting choices, they play such strong characters. Sadie Sink playing Ziggy here. She plays the kind of younger, outcast, weird, the one everyone thinks is a witch and thinks is cursed, and they're tormenting her because she's the one that beats to her own drummer. She's the awkward, kind of badass girl who doesn't fit in. The other sister is the one who's proper and prim and tries to deny her roots and deny her troubled past and tries to overcome the shady side curse that they've been going through for years and years, and tries to be the one that's going to escape the town and be the one that does it right. So the two sisters clash a lot. The one's trying to overcome the past and the other one's trying to embrace it. You get a nice sister warring story here. You get their origins of the dad running away and the mom being like a drug addict. And so more of that shady side origin that we saw in the first one comes to creep into this movie as well. We get a lot of Officer Good as a kid as he bonds with Sadie Sink, Ziggy's character. They wind up connecting even though they shouldn't, because the popular officer is from Sunnyvale and she's from Shady Side. So we get the Romeo Juliet opposites attracting kind of thing, where Officer Good wants to follow in his family's footsteps and be the proper officer for the town, but he also believes in this Shady Side curse, and he bonds with this awkward girl in Sadie Sink, and they kind of attract to each other. So you get that. You also get a situation where Emily Rudd's character, Cindy, the proper sister, has a former best friend who she's been ostracized from because the best friend's on the wrong side of the tracks from Shady Side. And as she grows up proper and tries to overcome the curse, the best friend kind of stays in the sexualized drug addict kind of thing where she's doing drugs, she's partying, she's doing all the stuff the Shady Side kids do, where Emily Rudd's character is trying to be better than that now, trying to outgrow that stuff. So you get the two best friends in their bonding situation. So you have a lot of undertones. And basically going back to this camp, the boyfriend of Emily Rudd, his name is Tommy Slater. He's played by McCabe Sly. He basically gets possessed by the Shady Side killer, Sarah Fear, basically. And he gets possessed just like a lot of them do in the first movie, and he goes around killing campers. So he's the slasher, he's the Jason Voorhees in this film, and they have to try and kind of avoid him and stay together while reuniting each other. The camp is going through this whole like color war thing where the Shady Side and Sunnyvale kids all are like doing capture the flag and paintball and stuff like that, and they're all divided. So they're trying to find each other and stay together while there's this maniac running around killing everyone, being possessed by Sarah Fear. So basically the older sister and the best friend character go and try to kind of get stuck in the origins. In the cave of Sarah Fear, they try to find, the story is that they have to find the hand that Sarah Fear cut off when she sacrificed to the gods. So you get a bit of an origin story. Sarah Fear cut off her hand in sacrifice, and she went to kind of become the new antagonist. So they have to find the hand of Sarah Fear and reunite it with the buried body for the curse to be over. So the older sister and the best friend have to kind of bond and reunite over finding her, while the younger sister and the cop, the young cop who's not yet a cop, are bonding and trying to survive. And the sisters are trying to find each other and save each other at the same time. So you've got the wrong side of the tracks cop and the ne'er-do-well sister bonding. You've got the former Shady Side sister who's now trying to kind of overcome her roots, bonding with her old best friend as they try to find the Sarah Fear origin, and this killer running around camp killing everyone. So you've got all these good through lines, all this heart, all this story. I love when characters have origins like Sarah Fear here. I love when characters have dualities. I love the awkward sister who embraces the curse. I love the straight and narrow sister who has to reunite with her roots and her old best friend. The best friend herself has some origins that are pretty taboo and shocking by this time standard, which we'll get to later. But you have all these through stories and all these connected characters and all this family heart and tradition in the Shady Side town curse that's going on at the same time they're trying to fix the curse and survive the slasher. That is the story in this film. It's got a lot of homages, again, to classic films. It's got a lot of great soundtrack. The editing is just seamless and funny and smooth. All the end stories, all the heart. I love this film. And of course, at the end, we get back to present day, or, well, 1994, when the main sister is telling this story and they're trying to save the main character from the first one's girlfriend and figure out if they can reunite the hand to the body. So you've got a nice connected story from the old film, a nice new standalone film that you can watch by itself, an entirely different feel from the 90s story, and it all connects at the end as well. So I love the way this story's told. I love the characters. I love the way it's written. I love using all the popular teen actors. I love that feel of teen adventure. I love the homage to the old slashers. It's a nice mix of old and new with a lot of homages to the past that makes its own story that you can watch by itself or makes a connected story that you can watch with the previous film. And now next week we are getting the final part, I think 1966, which goes back to the origins of Sarah Fear and connects the whole thing with an origin story prequel that plays through to the end. So I'm going to give this film a 7.5 out of 10. I would say slightly better than last week's, which I think I gave a 7 out of 10, but still very, very good and very on par with last week's, if not even a little better. It runs for an hour and 50, but that's like an hour and 42 minutes plus credits. So if you want a nice hour and 42 story, it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's paced well. It's fun. I would recommend it to anyone. Now, for those of you guys that have already seen this and you want spoilers, here are the spoilers. Basically, I forget what the character's name was. The friend character that was formerly Cindy's best friend winds up dying, and the two sisters reunite and re-embrace themselves in their past, Cindy and Ziggy. Cindy basically sacrificed herself. We think the whole time the main character telling this story from the 94 chapter is Cindy, but it's actually Ziggy. Cindy sacrifices herself and gets killed. Ziggy somehow survives. Ziggy and the cop still care for each other, but the cop has to deny the curse is real because he wants to become a cop. So he winds up growing up to be a cop and denies the curse even though he knows that it's real. Ziggy winds up being the one that actually is alive and in hiding, and the new characters come back and tell Ziggy, hey, we found the body of Sarah Fear. We know you have the hand. So the main character from this one tells the main characters from the first one where the hand is. They reunite the hand and body, and Dina from the first film, as she touches the hand to the body, gets sent back into 66, where she becomes Sarah Fear, and now gets to relive Sarah Fear's origin story, transported back to 1966. So again, great as a standalone, great as a connected story, great progression of the characters from the first film, great building on the characters from this film. Everything about it is great. 7.5 out of 10. Highly recommended. What did you think? If you've seen it, tell me in the comments below. Did you like this one better or the first film better? I recommend them both. They're on Netflix right now. Go check them out. And please subscribe and like and share this if you want future film reviews, including next Friday I'll be reviewing the final chapter of this saga, Part 3, 1966, and linking them all together and telling you what I think overall of this trilogy. So stay tuned for that next week, guys, and tell me what you think of this one. Stay scared and take care. Stay on Fear Street.